The Senate will come to order. The chaplain, Dr. Barry Black, will lead the Senate in prayer.
Let's pray. Our God, we're thankful that you have not only known us, but you have made yourself known to us. You told us in Genesis 8:22 that as long as time shall last, there will always be seed time and harvest. May our lawmakers plant seeds that will bring a harvest for your glory. Inspire them to seek your wisdom and guidance as they acknowledge that without you, they can accomplish nothing that will endure. As they seek to be your ambassadors to our nation and world, may they remember to use our liberties and privileges bought with so crimson a cost to promote the common good of humanity. We pray in your powerful name. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The clerk will read a communication to the Senate.
Washington, D.C., September 30, 2025, to the Senate. Under the provisions of Rule 1, Paragraph 3 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, I hereby appoint the Honorable Roger Marshall, a senator from the state of Kansas, to perform the duties of the chair. Signed, Chuck Grassley, President pro tempore.
Under the previous order, the leadership time is reserved. Morning business is closed. Under the previous order, the Senate will resume consideration of S. 2296, which the clerk will report.
Calendar number 115, S2296, a bill to authorize appropriations for fiscal year 2026 for military activities of the Department of Defense and so forth and for other purposes.
President.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, Senate and quorum call.
We are not.
Mr. President, we are just 14 hours away from a government shutdown. The House has passed a clean, nonpartisan, continuing resolution to fund the government until November the 21st. The President is ready to sign it. But Senate Democrats, they're standing in the way. Mr. President, I quote, "In a vacuum, this CR would get almost every Democratic vote. It just would. This is a clean CR that has no partisan riders, extends a bunch of programs that are Democratic priorities. It's clean," end quote. Now, those last few lines aren't mine, Mr. President, and they're not a quote from some other Republican. They're a quote from a mainstream journalist who is acknowledging what everyone knows, and that is Republicans have offered up a clean, nonpartisan funding extension, the same kind of extension Democrats have repeatedly supported in the past, and Democrats are blocking it for their own partisan purposes. Mr. President, it's right here. That's what it is. This is a partisan CR, 24 pages to keep the government open until November the 21st, at which time the Democrats will have almost same leverage they have right now. I mean, hopefully by then we'll have passed more appropriations bills. I'd like it if we pass all of them. But I think it's reasonable to expect we won't have them all through conference and right a place on the President's desk, so they will have another funding cliff they can take advantage of come November the 21st. This is ready to pass right now. This keeps the government open. This funds the government and protects federal workers and the American people from the hostage taking that has become, evidently, now the Democrat norm, even though it's something they decried not that many years ago. It's right here, Mr. President. It's in front of us, right here. We can pass this today. Pass it right now. All we have to do, get support from the Democrats. House has passed it. This is the House passed bill. We take it up in the Senate, pass it, send it to the President. President signs it into law, and the government stays funded. Pretty straightforward, right? And it's something that was done many, many times in the past, as I mentioned, by Democrats when they had the majority. Now, Mr. President, this right here is a chart I mentioned 13 times. So when the Democrats were in the majority around here, 13 different occasions, we passed short-term continuing resolutions, funding resolutions to keep the government funded. And as you can see, there were a lot of, interestingly enough, Republicans who voted to keep the government open when the Democrats had the majority. 13 separate occasions. You look at the numbers there, the lowest number on any one of those is 65 votes. All we need today in the Senate, in order for us to keep the government open, is to get 8 Democrats to vote with Republicans. That's all it takes. That's all it takes, 8 of them. Doesn't have to be all of them. I mean, I understand the reason, in many cases, the Democrats don't want to go down this path now, has nothing to do with the substance of this. I mean, again, look at this. They're on to argue about the substance of a continuing resolution that funds the government for 7 weeks, at which time they'll have similar leverage. It doesn't have anything to do with that. It has everything to do with politics. Because when this happened, there was a Democrat president in the White House. Now there's a Republican president, President Trump. That's what this is about. It's about partisan politics. Now, there's another chart, which I will show you here, which I think points out, too, the hypocrisy of the Democrats. This is the percentage of Democrat senators who supported Biden-era CRAs. Look at that, 100%. 100%. There was two of them where it was 98%, so they must have lost 1 or 2 on their side on a couple different occasions. But 13 times, when they had the majority, almost all of them, without exception, voted to fund the government. Because that's kind of simply what we do. We try to avoid government shutdowns, because they tend to be disruptive, and everybody knows that. In fact, you can go through a long list of quotes, and I'll just give you a few, give you a frame of reference. In 2023, the Democrat leader called a shutdown, and I quote, avoidable, irresponsible, and deeply damaging, end quote. And noted that a shutdown would cause, and I quote again, disruptions for millions of New Yorkers to services they rely on, while thousands of federal workers could be furloughed, end quote. In 2019, during the midst of a government shutdown, the senior Democrat senator from Hawaii stated, and I quote, while rich people are protected, this shutdown leaves the people who are most vulnerable to fend for themselves, end quote. In 2023, the senior Democrat from Massachusetts, who has been one of the biggest voices in support of a shutdown this time around, had this to say, and I quote, okay, so let's start with how much pain a government shutdown is going to cause us right here in Massachusetts. We have about 25,000 federal workers in Massachusetts. These are public servants, just trying to do their jobs, trying to help people. They have mortgages, they have child care bills, they got to put gas in the tank and food on the table, and they're not going to get their paychecks, end quote. Well, that's a sampling, Mr. President. This is an endless video loop of members on this side who've been saying these things now for years, not decades. So I could go on. In fact, let me just give you a couple more for some additional perspective. We've got Democrats as recently as this year talking about the negative effects a shutdown has on American families. And now, Democrats are so committed to shutting down the government, they're rejecting a clean, nonpartisan, short-term funding extension, the very same kind of extension that, as I mentioned, they supported 13 times during the Biden administration. So what's changed, Mr. President? I think we all know. It's not that the problems with the shutdown have changed. All those quotes that they said, I assume maybe they still believe them. It's that the Democrats' far-left base and far-left senators have demanded a showdown with the president. And the Democrat leaders have bowed to their demands. And apparently, the American people just have to suffer the consequences. Now, Mr. President, when I took office as Majority Leader, I made it clear my commitment to regular order, in particular to a bipartisan appropriations process. And I've delivered on that. We've passed 3 of the fiscal year 2026 appropriations bills with strong bipartisan margins here in the Senate, and I am eager to get back to bipartisan appropriations work. And that's why Republicans have put forward a clean, nonpartisan, short-term funding resolution to keep the government open, to enable us to finish that appropriations work. We wanted a completely non-controversial bill so that no one would be inclined to vote against it, and so that we could get back to funding the government the way it should be funded, not through endless CRs, but through thoughtful, considered, year-long appropriations bills. But, Mr. President, the Democrats just can't take yes for an answer. They're rejecting a bipartisan process and attempting to take government funding hostage. And I had hoped that yesterday's White House meeting might mean that Democrats are starting to rethink their plans to shut down the government. But it seems that their leadership, at least, is full speed ahead. Republicans, Mr. President, House, Senate, and White House are united in our commitment to fund the government through a clean, nonpartisan funding resolution, and then to get back to the business of bipartisan appropriations. And so Democrats have a choice to make. They can shut down the government and subject the American people to all the problems that come with the shutdown, many of which, as I said, they've enumerated in the countless quotes they've made in the past. Or they can join Republicans to pass a clean, nonpartisan, short-term funding bill and keep the government's lights on. For the sake of the American people, Mr. President, I really hope they choose the latter. Mr. President, I yield the floor. Does the senator from New York want to enter into a conversation about this?
I want to make my point.
Go ahead and make your
Here's
point.
my point. On every one of these... Leader, grab a mic. Yep. I just wanted... On every one of these...
The Democratic leader is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. And if we can get an easel, bring it over, please. Thank the leader for letting me borrow his chart for a minute. So he's pointed to each of these bar graphs, percentage of Democratic senators who supported Biden era CRSs. Yes, that's true. Guess why? In each case, Democrats negotiated with Republicans and said, let's have a bipartisan bill. The leader says it's a clean bill. It's a partisan bill. Not once were Democrats asked for what input should be in the bill. We were not told about it. We were not asked about it, etc. Nor did Speaker Johnson talk to Hakeem Jeffries. You cannot pass legislation in the Senate when it comes to appropriations unless it is bipartisan. So the leader will say it's clean. No, it's not clean because there was no discussion. Every one of these times I went to the Republican leader and said, what do you need? What do you want? And in many cases, we had to significantly change the bill. One of our bills had aid to Ukraine. The Republicans didn't want it. To avoid shutting down the government, we talked to them, negotiated, and took it out. But not once was there any bipartisan discussion or talk on this bill. We wanted to give our Republican colleagues a chance. That's why some of us back in March said, okay. But we saw what happened after that. We saw a decimation of health care in the BBB. So bad right now that 80% of Americans support renewing the tax credits of the ACA. We saw them use rescissions, pocket rescissions, impoundments to undo what was done in the legislative process. So the world has changed, but that one way it's changed, and there are several, and I'll get to those, one way it's changed is there was no discussion. And we asked to have meetings. Hakeem Jeffries and I asked the leader and the speaker to sit down with us as early as July. They didn't. The job of a leader is a bipartisan negotiation. And the appropriators, which you'll say are discussing things. But the two issues we care about, extending the ACA credits, broadly popular with the American people, so they don't want to talk about it, they want to change the subject, and ending these rescissions and impoundments, which would undo what we would do. The four appropriators, when they got down and discussed it, they said that should be for the four leaders to discuss. That's what Thune said. That's what Cole said, the Republican head of appropriations in the House. That's what Collins said. That's what Murray said. That's what DeLauro said. They did not discuss it with us at all. So to say the appropriations process is working is wrong. It's not working. It's not working because the leaders wouldn't discuss it with us, as we discussed with Republicans on every single one of these, what should be in the bill and add to the bill. Please.
So the senator from New York, the way that we've done it, and it's a different business model than the one he used, we actually have the Appropriations Committee sit down. And the date that they came up with, November 21st, was agreed upon by the House and Senate appropriators, Republican and Democrat.
Would the Speaker yield? Would the leader yield?
I will. And the Ukraine issue you're talking about wasn't a CR. That was an entirely different issue. So don't throw that into this mix.
It was not.
But
it was
what
not
we're
an
talking
entirely
about,
different
the
issue.
Democrat leader and his colleagues have the same leverage on November the 21st. This is a short-term CR. This is what we do all the time around here, as witnessed by the chart that you're just using there. 24 pages long, funds of government till November the 21st, at which time you have the same leverage then that you have right now, and we have until the end of the year to fix the ACA credit issue. And we're happy, as I said yesterday and have said on multiple occasions, to sit down with you to do that.
Thank you. Now, reclaiming my time.
Nice.
They did not agree to the bills that the leader is talking about because they said explicitly, Democrat and Republican, there are two issues they can't resolve: impoundments and rescissions and ACA tax credits and health care. And they all agreed, the four of them, that they couldn't agree to a bill until the leaders discussed it with us. We asked the leaders to discuss it with us in July, in the middle of August, at the end of August, in September. They refused. And now he says, give us another 45 days. Well, frankly, the Republicans have had 45 days since March. 145 days, another 45 days, another 45 days. And in the room yesterday, Johnson said he doesn't want to do it at all. He doesn't want to have any compromise. So the time to do it is now. And the idea that we can do it till January, when we talked to the president yesterday, he didn't understand this. But I know that the leader does. On October 1st, in a day or two, millions of Americans, millions, are going to get notices that their insurance premiums will rise an average of $400 a month, $5,000 a year. A middle-class family can't afford that. We want to renew those credits, among other things in health care, but renew those credits so that people won't pay that horrible increase. You can debate health care all you want, but the overwhelming majority of Americans, Democrat, Independent, and even a good number of Republicans, want us to renew those credits. And the impoundment rescission, I mean, what does the leader think? That we should go along, come to an agreement, and then let them undo it unilaterally as they've done once and now have asked to do it more? No way. That's not how you deal with this, and we never had another president who did it. So I repeat, I love this chart. Democrats negotiated with Republicans. Democrats negotiated with Republicans. Democrats negotiated with Republicans, and on through the whole chart. Didn't happen this time. Leader Thune did not come once to me and say, is this bill acceptable? What do you want in the bill? So they call it clean. We call it extremely partisan. Not one discussion, House or Senate, between the two leaders. That is not how you negotiate. And that is not how you pass appropriation bills. And the Appropriations Committee is stalled by their own admission because the leader will not come and talk to us about it. Now, let me make a few other points. Republicans are heading us into a shutdown. We stand at the precipice of a government shutdown because Republicans are not serious about keeping the government open. If you want one glaring instance of that, Speaker Johnson sent his people home. They're home right now, even though the government will conclude at midnight. There's only one conclusion you can draw when the Speaker sends the House home: that he wants a shutdown. He doesn't want to negotiate. All they want to do is force us, try to bully us, and they're not going to succeed, into taking their partisan bill, take it or leave it. That is not how this place works. And that's why we're headed into a shutdown, because Republicans refuse to negotiate a bipartisan bill that deals with the health care needs of the American people, which they care about. Yesterday, Leader Jeffries and I went to the White House to meet with the President and Republican leaders about finding a way out of this impasse. It was a frank and candid discussion. It was long overdue. As I said, we'd asked for it for months. We asked the President to meet with us when Thune and Johnson wouldn't. He said yes. And according to all reports, Johnson and then Leader Thune, who just followed what Johnson wanted, said don't do it, and the President withdrew. So on Friday, I called Leader Thune and said, let's have a meeting, and we did, but it's at the last minute. There's still a chance. It's only the president who can do this. We know he runs the show here. And he's got to say to our Republican colleagues, deal with this ACA issue so that people don't get $400 premium increases. Deal with this impoundment and rescission issue, which when we told him about it yesterday, he seemed not familiar with it, but now he knows. And we can solve this problem. But Johnson won't, Thune won't, and so the president is not going to be able to persuade them unless he tries at the last minute. That's the only hope here. Look, sitting in the room with the president, it was very clear that the president hadn't fully grasped the magnitude of the disaster he's causing when the government shuts down. As health care costs go up, as people lose their health care, rural hospitals are already closing. Speaker Johnson in the room said to me they're not, and I pointed out to him that Tim Kaine just informed us that 3 rural clinics in Virginia, Southwest Virginia, were closing. And the head of those clinics said it's because of the bills the Republicans passed. The so-called BBB, which we know is not beautiful. The American people know it's not beautiful. And so they know, our Republican colleagues know that the American people are fully behind us when it comes to lowering costs, but also when it comes to health care and making sure that those premiums don't go way up. And then I spoke to Speaker Johnson directly in the room. I told him because he can't debate health care, because he knows it's not the American people are on the side of wanting these increases, even Republicans, I told him to stop making up stories, that too many Republicans are lying through their teeth. They say, oh, the Democrats want undocumented immigrants to get health care, to get the federal dollars of health care. That is utter bull, and they know it. The law prohibits undocumented immigrants from getting payments from Medicare, Medicaid, or the ACA. There's no money, not a penny, of federal dollars that are going there. So why do they bring this up? Because they're afraid to talk about the real issue, which is health care for American citizens, health care for people who need the health care and can't afford these premiums. Let me say it again. Undocumented immigrants cannot receive premium tax credits by law. So they should stop these lies and address the real issue, which of course they're afraid to do. A standard Republican MO is to make something else up because the American people are on our side. Now, this week, here's what House Republicans sent out guidance to their members. They said, quote, not to make the message about health care because Republicans lose that argument. They're right. Their position is callous, malicious, unpopular. So they're not only refusing to talk about health care, but apparently when they do, it's only to spread misinformation, to spread lies. I said this to Speaker Johnson in the Oval Office yesterday. I told him it was total bull, I think that's the word I used, to say that we want undocumented immigrants to get federal benefits, that it can't happen by law, and nothing we've proposed in our bill changes that. He sort of smirked, that's it, because he knows the truth. He knows the truth. And they're lying to the American people, these Republicans who use this, because they know how unpopular their position is. Kaiser Family Foundation poll, 75% of Americans support extending the ACA premium tax credit, including 63% of Republicans. Republicans have chosen the losing side of the health care debate because they're trying to take away people's health care. They're going to let people's premiums rise. And this idea that we can do this at January, no. The notices go out October 1st as to how much increase people will get in 29 states, and they only have a short time long before January to decide, are they going to drop their health care because they can't afford it? Are they going to take a lesser plan where they pay more through deductibles and co-payments? Or are they going to keep that plan and cut back on buying a car, going on a vacation, or worse? Republicans have simply put, folks, the Republicans have chosen the losing side of the health care debate. Losing side. And in the White House meeting yesterday, Speaker Johnson made it perfectly clear he didn't care if people's premiums should go up, because his conference is against it. And so again, the House isn't even set to come back until October 7th. You tell me which side is actively manufacturing a shutdown. Why did the House do that? Because they wanted to negotiate? I don't think so. They wanted to jam it through, but they're not going to be able to. Yesterday, during a House Republican conference, Representative Lisa McClain made it explicit. She said, don't talk about health care to her Republican colleagues. They don't want to talk about it, so they make these other things up, facts out of thin air. So the Republicans have until midnight tonight to get serious with us about solving this crisis and keep the government open. But right now, they're not even talking to us seriously. They're sort of in la-la land. And then on another issue, related. Yesterday, the president posted an offensive deepfake AI video of Leader Jeffries and me with sombreros, fake music, impersonating my voice through AI, it wasn't me, talking even more lies about health care and immigration. Listen to this, America. Hours away from a shutdown, which we don't want, the American people don't want, the president is busy trolling